I started by prying off a piece of siding and installing an aluminum J-channel around the area where my pergola's header would end up. Drip edge was nailed over the treated 2x8 to keep water out. Eventually we'll be getting new siding, so I wasn't terribly concerned about the colors not matching. The 2x8 was secured to the studs in the wall with 6-inch screws. I marked out the location for the post brackets on the patio. These Simpson brackets would support our 3 6x6 posts. They also look simple and clean. When we designed our pergola, it was important that there wouldn't be a post in the middle of our kitchen window. It also had to be tall enough to go over our kitchen window and provide plenty of shade. I quickly learned to thread the anchors with their nut before I pounded them into the cement. Tap cons prevent these brackets from spinning. Each bracket had 4 tap cons that add additional stability. I triple checked for square and gave each anchor bolt one last turn. A cap finished off the look. These 6x6 treated posts were really wet, which made them extremely heavy. My wife helped me line up the first post to see how it would look. The patio has a pitch, so I used my laser level to record each post's height on a story stick. I had to do this at night and couldn't film it. I started cutting my first post with my skill saw, but quickly decided to drag out my miter saw. My miter saw allowed a cleaner square cut. Each 6x6 post still had to be flipped over to finish each cut. The front cross beams were also heavy 6x6 soaking wet pieces of treated lumber. I continued to lay out the pergola on the ground just to make sure that my measurements were correct. Half-lap joints were cut into each cross beam. The trenching feature on my miter saw made this process simple. Each half-lap was cleaned up with a hammer and a chisel. The pergola would end up being 10 feet tall, 18 feet long, and 12 feet deep. The 6x6 beams were also half-lapped on one end and cleaned with a chisel. Each post was stood up and attached to the patio with Simpson wood to concrete bases. The Simpson finishing washers and 3-inch screws made them look clean. The first cross beam was carefully put in place. I used liquid nails and 2 8-inch screws to secure each beam. A Simpson concealed joist hanger on the header attached to the house, and the half lap held each 4x6 beam in place. I checked for level. 2 8-inch screws and liquid nails were added to each half lap to securely hold the joint together. I'll add additional brackets at the end, in each corner, and over each half lap. This 6x6 monstrosity was the heaviest piece of treated lumber. I definitely should have made this a post and not a crossbeam. It was carefully put in place and then attached to the posts with screws and liquid nails. Our last 4x6 beam was test fit in position. To figure out where the bracket went, we used a level to find our height and a square to dial in the correct location. The bracket was secured to the house with 2 3-inch screws. Liquid nails were put in the last half lap. The beam was carefully slid in place while checking for square and not breaking the kitchen window. Eight-inch screws held it in place from the top. Each Simpson concealed joist hanger had spots for 2 screws, one on each side. I use a decorative washer. I used a setup block to line up the front T-strap. Clamps held it in place until I could secure it with screws. These decorative washers centered each screw as the 3-inch screws were driven in place. To shade the middle of our patio, I used sunshades that I ordered off Amazon. Hooks went in each corner, an adjustable toggle went on the house hooks to adjust the sail. The front hooks ended up being in one of the holes for the corner bracket. Each post was cleaned up with a 1/4-inch roundover bit. The sharp edges had to be broken up to prevent slivers. It would have been much easier to round these corners before the posts were installed. Lights were added to make it more comfortable at night.